you all please rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I would like to make a change to the order of business tonight, pulling out the New Hartford Education Association from the consent agenda. Could I have a motion?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the change? I didn't hear.
Pulling out the New Hartford Education Association, which is the teacher's contract, out of our consent agenda and moving it under new business.
I'll make a motion for you.
Thank you. A second, please.
A second.
Thanks. All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, Jeff, you're up with science of reading.
Fantastic. First, I'd like to thank all of the Board of Education members that are here and those that can't be here. Really appreciate so far the amazing support that I've received from each and every one of you. Looking forward to getting together with you individually and continuing to learn more about your perspectives on things and your roles and how you feel that you are engaging in our processes here at the Board of Ed for New Hartford Public Schools. So I also want to thank the staff who has been tremendously welcoming, from the custodians to the librarian that we have, our secretaries, our staff. Our students have been incredible. I've been stopping into the buildings and visiting with kids. We're learning how to strip copper off of metal. I learned in one of the 5th grade classrooms, but also looking to see how kids are interacting with one another. Very pleasant, very kind to one another, especially during snack time when I'm in the classrooms and I'm pit stopping and visiting, sitting with them and eating lunch, asking about them, asking about their families. The kids here are stellar. They're so incredibly impressive to me. Some families I've also interacted with in the community are very, very proud of New Hartford and the education that they are receiving. So I wanted to echo those sentiments again. And I've also started to pick up some of my gear. So for those of us that are watching online, I got my New Hartford t-shirt and getting further acclimated. Someone told me about a great little spot to pick that up. So I was very happy about that. We are going to be presenting this evening based on last Board of Education meeting, I believe was November the 15th, if I'm not mistaken. We have more information that we'd like to present to the Board of Education as we endeavor to meet one of the Connecticut statutes in terms of our reading program and our curriculum. And as one of our charges as the Board of Ed, we certainly should be looking at that in a course of action, which will be recommended today. So I have with me some very, very amazing individuals. I have Kelly Carroll, and I have Amy Kennedy and Heather Mathis, which you are familiar with. They're part of the leadership team here in New Hartford, and they are well-versed at giving us some background in the science of reading. We're going to be talking about that this evening. So I'll be calling them up in a couple of moments. And I also, before my time expires, I want to also just wish everybody at home a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, because I won't maybe have the chance to see everybody and to all the board members as well. So I just wanted to share that as well. All right, so without further ado, if we can, we're going to be presenting, we're going to use the Promethean board. So can everyone see comfortable with where you're at? If not, we could adjust. Purpose of this is to give a definition, working definition of what the general state statute is requesting of all of the districts, but also to have a very clear understanding for everybody here at the Board of Ed of some historical perspective, how we're meeting the needs of some of our children, not all, and looking to provide a course of action and recommendations so that we can provide a better education as we move forward with science of reading and having a real understanding of what it is, how we come about to learn how to read, and what it is not. And we're going to be looking at different program structures that we have within our curriculum now and some suggestions moving forward. So that is what we were endeavoring to do. So we get the next slide. Heather, thank you so much. So if you see here in 2021, the Right to Read Act was passed. This has been something that's been ongoing at the state level since probably the year 2000 or so. And they have, it's grown greater legs in terms of awareness of student performance when it comes to reading, specifically in the kindergarten to 3rd grade areas. So that has finally grown into something much more substantial, such as the proposed statute that's before us. And we are charged to notify the Connecticut State Department of Education of our intentions going forward. So our recommendation will be to extend what we have and extend what we're looking at for curriculum revision. We have steps in place that we're going to share with you this evening, and request an extension so that we have time, like we mentioned last time, right? We have time to investigate some of these programs. How is it going to benefit our students specifically? Where are the gaps that we need further implementation or instruction to support all of our kiddos? And then moving from there, looking at, whether we need additional resources for funding and what it may be. So we want to do it in a very meticulous and a very detailed oriented way. So that's the legislation in a nutshell. I know there's a lot of jargon up there, but that's essentially what we're going to be looking at this evening. If we head over to the next slide. Excellent. I'll call up Amy Kennedy to help present some of the historical perspective of where reading instruction has started across this continuum, and she's going to lead us in that discussion. Thanks, Amy.
We're going to go on a little history journey for a few minutes and talk a little bit about reading instruction, how that has evolved over the course of the last few decades. So starting here, when we're looking at our reading instruction spectrum and thinking about what we see on the left over here is called the whole language approach. And this approach to teaching reading was very popular in the 1980s and 90s. It was sort of a way for educators to kind of move away from sort of like that Dick and Jane, those readers that we used to have, some of the phonics-based things that were happening at the time, and that whole word reading, and really kind of the goal being to flood children with lots and lots and lots of literature in the classroom. And that sounds awesome, and we do that, we love to do that. But in this whole language model at the time, really the intent, the thought behind this was that students will learn to read implicitly. They'll kind of just naturally pick it up because we're providing them all of these books. And there was a less emphasis on explicit instruction, and very little to no emphasis using phonics. So as educators, we're always continuing to learn new things as research is presented to us. And so shortly, as a nation, we sort of shifted to what we call the balanced literacy approach. And this became popular sort of in the 90s and today. It's often seen in classrooms today. And essentially, this is sort of like that mesh of using some of those practices with the whole language approach, this literacy-rich classrooms, but also acknowledging that there needs to be some word study and phonics involved for teaching kids how to read. So with this balanced literacy approach, it kind of meshes those concepts together, but with this, it's the word study and the phonics isn't necessarily as explicit and sequential as it needs to be as now that we have. What's interesting about the balanced literacy approach is right now about 72% of teachers nationwide self-report that this is the approach they see that they use in their classrooms today. And then we have the structured literacy model. So this was a term coined in 2000. There was a national panel of reading experts, and their charge was to report out what is the evidence in terms of how kids learn how to read. How should we be implementing reading instruction in schools? And so this panel of experts determined what that is. We're going to dive in a little bit deeper in the next few slides about what those nitty-gritties are. But essentially, the structured literacy approach does have a very systematic progression. It includes using phonics, creative awareness, and other really important foundational literacy skills. And that has to be a very consistent, coherent approach. So, thinking about where we are as a district, and thinking about where we are on this little spectrum here, we sort of place ourselves in this area here where the red dot is, and because we have been implementing a lot of these practices with phonics and awareness and all of those foundational skills, and over the past 10 years or so, we've been moving away from that balanced literacy model, implementing more of these research-based practices that we know are working for students. And when it comes to the reading science, this is where the science is telling us that we want to be, because we know that we're going to that approach to reach all learners. Is that okay to
Sure.
So, can you give an example of
Yep.
There's a lot of words up there. What's an example of balanced literacy?
Sure, so in balanced literacy, what that might look like, and that's a great question because it's a little bit vague in how it's implemented, it varies from classroom to classroom, and that's what kind of steers it away from being more systematic, which we don't really want. But in a balanced literacy model, we do a lot of more teaching with different kinds of strategies to teach reading that have more to do with ensuring that kids are using meaning to figure out a word and things of that sort versus always going to sort of a phonic space. And Heather's going to get into that in more detail in her slides ahead and outline what those skills are that are then being seen in structured literacy classroom. We might see it in a balanced literacy classroom, but not in a systematic way. So we know like by the end of first grade, all kids will have, this word family completed, and then they go on and they master that, and they go on to the next word family, or the next concept defined. So this kind of ensures that we're doing that in a way that's going to be kind of going along the staircase there.
And if I could add additionally, Tom, so with the whole language approach, this is the premise behind it. If we flood kids with literacy across multiple genres, nonfiction, fiction, and things of that nature, they're just going to learn how to read on their own, which we know is not the case. So the balanced literacy approach started to try to bring that idea of, hold on, we're flooding too much of this. We're not giving kids more implicit instruction. And the letter B says, B. And now when I put an R next to it, it says burr. It's making a blend, right? So then I'm giving the kids specific skills to help them break apart words, then recognizing word family. So we started to get away from, if we just flood the classroom environment and just read books and have kids guess words that are covered, we're moving away from that because that is not how we learn how to read, scientifically speaking. So.
And that's a great segue because in a balanced literacy classroom, what's interesting is that what the data shows is that if you're using a balanced literacy approach, about 40% of your students are going to learn just fine with what you just described. Right. They're going to learn just fine if that's the environment that you have with the strategies that you're doing. Because a lot of us are able to kind of figure things out. But that's only 40% of students. Mm-hmm. And so with that, we often have to provide intervention or start supplementing. So we're not just using those approaches, but we're incorporating more direct phonics instruction. And we've been doing that. Those are some of the great action steps that our district has been taking over the course of the last few years, which is why our DAT is kind of moving along that continuum. We're moving toward making sure that we are providing the supports that students need.
So why is it only 40%? What's happening to the other 60%? You're having to intervene. Why? Because of behavior? Because they're not understanding the personality? Personalities are not aligning with the way you're teaching it. Why is there such a drastic?
So this source, what it's describing is that if you're teaching in a balanced literacy model where your focus is on, as Jeff described, like just the literacy-rich environment, and sometimes we're, inadvertently having kids guess words and things like that, that kids are able to learn how to read, but not as many as if you're teaching it explicitly, which is what the structured literacy model does. So by making those shifts and having that approach to teaching where we're really starting at the foundational level, pre-K, kindergarten, first grade, focusing on learn how to read, learn how to decode this word, learn that this word D-O-G says the and that says dog versus looking at the picture and guessing that was the word dog. So this approach in structured literacy focuses more highly on that in a very systematic way. And that approach is actually shown and of course almost all kids. So that's sort of where the science of reading is leading us, is that as we're learning more and more, we're seeing that there are better approaches to reading that we will be able to reach more kids if we're implementing that model. And then turn it over to Heather. She's going to dive in a little bit deeper to some of these processes with structured literacy. All right, here we go. So the next piece is we're going to get into some more detail and just provide some examples of what this looks like in action. And going back to the science of reading, what we have to consider is this this very visual here. This visual demonstrates the two key components that students need in order to comprehend, which is the ultimate goal of reading. It's really important to know that learning to read isn't something that comes naturally. Through the research, they have discovered that there's truly different ways in your brain, different functions that your brain needs to perform in order to learn how to read. When we learn how to speak, we do it naturally. Learning or speaking is something that comes naturally to us. However, learning to read is something that needs to be systematically taught, and your brain is truly being trained to read. So those two components, the first one being decoding, that's how you read those words. So taking that, in this example of dog, that can decode the words. But I need to be systematically and explicitly taught those skills in order to do that. For some kids, they'll just naturally pick up on that. There's that whole language. They just automatically know. But many children need more than that. And so there are components in our curriculum that we have to support that, this block. It's one thing to be able to decode the words, but the other piece you have to have in place is what we call linguistic comprehension or language comprehension. It's your ability to understand the spoken language. So I see a word, I can decode that word, and then I have to know what that word means. So those two pieces coming together make you a strategic reader who's able to comprehend. When we take a look at the components that have been identified as effective pieces of reading instruction, we look at phonemic awareness. That's the knowledge that sounds of spoken words make up words. So for example, it's a completely auditory skill. In kindergarten, you're going to hear kids break words into sounds. You're going to hear students break words into syllables. There's lots of different pieces that they need to build in order to get into decode. Phonemic awareness is one of those pieces. In our pre-K, K 1 and 2, we have a program in place to support this. The next piece is phonics. So that's the relationship between the sound and letter. So how do we bring what we know, what we learned in our phonemic awareness, how do we know what we learned with our sounds, and how do we connect those to those letters that we see on the page? And so phonics makes a connection for students. Fluency is another component. That component looks at how accurately, how, not necessarily quickly, so appropriate speed, kind of like we're talking right now. Right? So as students are developing fluency, we want them to be able to read like they're having a conversation and to have some expression. So there are 3 components to fluency. The next part is vocabulary. So thinking back to that language comprehension piece, it's really important that kids know the meaning of words and how to pronounce them. When they have those pieces in place, then they're able to connect to the word that they're reading. And finally, ultimately, all these pieces come together to comprehend the text that they're reading. So you can see, this is a complex task, right? This is not something that happens automatically. And so it's really important that we have a very systematic approach to how we teach kids. So what does this look like here right now? I'm gonna share that with you on that slide, but any questions about this before I continue? So as we think about where we are, just kind of put this visual here, because we know that there are lots of different components that are important to this process. And we also want to make sure that we're being explicitly and systematic in our approach. So currently the program we have in place to teach phonemic awareness to our students is Integrity. Integrity, again, is a daily 10-minute activity that all kids pre-K to 3 have in order to develop those crucial phonemic awareness skills. From there, we have Foundations. Foundations is the program we use to teach phonics. So it's our spelling. It's connecting with sounds and letters. In our fluency, we have a guided reading model, which is kids practicing their reading. And we also have them doing things like partnering. There's lots more to that piece. The other two curriculum programs that we have in place to address our final two components are the Teachers College Units of Study, both in vocabulary and comprehension. These are two programs that are currently addressing these skills in our reading curriculum. And so you'll see that we've always kept in mind the important components to how best to teach reading. And over time, as we've been learning new information and evolving as educators, we noticed that bringing in especially these first two pieces is critical to the process. Because they're essentially skipping a step. Without these two pieces, the other three don't happen. And so over time, we're looking at all ways to review and refine our process and how best to teach kids. And we have new information and research, and we want to make sure that as we are taking in this information, we're making the best decisions curricularly for our students.
Are the whole 5, they're implemented at each grade level, or is it broken down some?
They are. So I would say phonemic awareness is one that is, especially in our pre-K to second grade. There are times when we might see students who need some additional support, and so we identify those students and do provide additional instruction in that category. Overall, every other pieces, phonics is highlighted from pre-K, use foundations of pre-K through 4th grade curriculum. The TCE units of study are a K-6 program that we use. Specialization adds that. Okay.
Kelly.
Next.
So as we think about shifting that balance over to a more structured learning approach, we want to take a look at a few different pieces. We want to look at our data. Right? We want to make a data-driven decision. So one thing that our data has told us is that our foundational skills are improving. So by using those programs like Foundations, Integrity that Heather just talked about, we are seeing an upward trend in our student data. Much of that we're seeing in our DIBELS assessment. So we use our DIBELS assessment to identify our students' strengths in areas of phonics and phonemic awareness, but we also can find where there are gaps, which students have some weaknesses, and those are the students that we can put into intervention to really give them a nice boost. Our data, though, is also showing that we're starting to increase the amount of kids who are in need of intervention services. Okay, so some of that we thought was maybe due to COVID, but now we're also seeing that COVID's over, and we're still starting to see that we have some gaps in those areas that are that we have kids needing the intervention. And then by the time they get up here to Antolini, our data is also showing that we're falling very stagnant with our Smarter Balance scores. So we're using all of this data to help start our thinking process as we start moving toward that structured literacy approach and making really good decisions toward any new programming that we might need to make. The other piece is the feedback piece. So we are in constant communication with our fabulous teachers. We've had a lot of positive feedback from our teachers about the new programs that we've put in place, like Integrity and Foundations, because the students really are gaining a lot of knowledge of that and putting it into their practice. One thing that we are hearing, though, is our teachers are pulling from here, pulling from there, and it would be great if they had a nice, coherent type of program or a curriculum where everything kind of felt like it was all pieced right together for them. One great piece of feedback, and this is nothing new to New Hartford, our teachers are excited for new learning. They love getting their hands dirty and getting involved in new learning and putting that right into our classrooms. So that's really wonderful feedback that we've had from our staff. So the other piece of feedback we're considering is, what are we hearing from our families? So our families are telling our teachers they really like what their kids are coming home with, that they've learned in Foundations Integrity. However, we're also hearing that that our parents would prefer that our children were in the classroom than getting pulled out for their intervention groups. So that's something that we definitely want to take a look at as well.
So with all that, we need to think about what are our next steps as we move along our continuum. So one thing that we're going to get ready to do is a curricular review. So we want to take a look at all that we're doing in district, use data, use our, form focus groups with our teachers, and really review what's happening in our curriculum right now. With that, we can make data-driven decisions to increase our capacity in the classroom. What other skills do teachers need to deliver wonderful instruction to our students? Another piece is that stakeholder voice, so ensuring that, for example, the Board of Ed understands what we're talking about, what we're actually doing, and making sure that together we can have a great program for our community. And then our final piece will be that we will, okay, if I say that.
Yes, absolutely.
Be recommending an extension when it comes time to decide our next piece for our programming. The purpose of this presentation, as always, is we want to ensure that we are supporting all of our students. We don't want to hover in that 40%. We want to be at 95%. So we want to take a really good look at everything that we're doing here and ensure that all of our students have. Here they are. This is why.
Mhm.
So this is what we're all about. It's our kiddos.
Thank you.
Can you go back 2 slides? Right there. So
Yes.
when you say the teachers are looking for a central program that would encompass all these 5 steps, is that what you're meaning?
Yes, so, and it may not be one, we have to do some research on this, right? But what's happening is, what we've explained in this slide particularly, is that we've got Heggerty, we've got foundations, we've got this, and we've got that. And it would just be great to have something more streamlined and coherent, so that all students are receiving the same instruction all the time.
What is the new program that they're recommending, that one streamlined process?
We're going to go through that in the curricular review, so we're going to have to find that out. We don't know yet. So we'll take a look. I know that Heather's been communicating already with some of the companies to get materials in hand to review, ask those questions, make sure that it's meeting these 5 criteria, or 3 of the 5, whatever it may be, and then make a decision going forward there. Yeah.
So your comment about so that all kids receive the same structure, right? So how would that be when you have, obviously there's different levels of different levels of comprehension and abilities to read through classrooms and through grades, but mostly through classrooms is what I'm getting at. So how would you have a program that would be able to meet the needs of the kids who need more help versus the kids who are, excellent readers and comprehension? So how would that, in your mind, how would one program do that? Is it broken up into little levels within the same program, or?
Yeah. Through differentiated instruction and through a program, we have to ensure that that is exactly what you're describing. It has to be differentiated. So our students that are maybe struggling at a lower level would have this differentiated component of the program to address those specific needs. Kiddos that are at this range, at this level, and through assessment, we're going to know what do they need specifically, and then pull on those resources. If that program doesn't have it, no thanks, not for us, right? That's how we're going to be deciding those factors, because we know our kids, we know them intimately, we know what needs they have, and whether it's in the phonemic awareness arena or fluency or vocabulary rich and comprehension, we're going to know that so that we can provide that to the students. If that program doesn't have all these elements, they're not going to serve the purpose of meeting the needs of all.
So there's like, for instance, does Haggerty now allow for a different level of learning at the student's ability, or is that more of a one size fits all situation?
Systematic approach and delivery. So lesson 1, 2, 3, it's systematic. So everyone has a very clear common understanding of how it's delivered. The teams meet together if they have any tweaks or things that they need to make. If they're meeting with a smaller group of kiddos that need additional instruction and support through Haggerty, the same thing with foundations. There is a lot of repetition on a daily basis. There are units that are assessed. So student X may have gone through the first foundations unit, and we noticed through the assessment that they're having difficulty with matching up the letter and sound for this particular letter. That's continued to be addressed on a goal that's set going forward in the primary grades. So those 2 elements are some examples of that. They are the more holistic approach because they're systemic, but it does not preclude a teacher from saying, hey, but we need a little bit more support in this area.
So Jeff, what happens if you do the research, which I love the idea of doing the extension, so we have time to actually look at it, you guys have time to delve into it?
Yep.
What happens if you discover that it's not gonna meet the needs of things that you're talking about and that our students need? But we're forced to do it because we're gonna get funding cut
Sure.
at the state level, or we're gonna go back to the whole, if you don't wear masks, we're not gonna give you money, that whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So what if we're forced to do it, but it's not meeting the needs of our students in our district?
Great question. And it's something that would keep me up at night and have me worried, to be honest with you. So we have to make a very informed decision based on review to make sure that we are making the absolute best investment for the program that we feel is going to work for us. If not, at the end of the day, then we have to own that mistake and course correct along the way. We won't know really though until we could have our hands on the materials and really delve through to make sure that that is going to meet the needs of our kiddos, meet the needs of what the state is requiring, but also meet more so our kiddos' needs first here in our district.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, Charles.
So in general, is the state's goal to have us look at this display and instead of seeing 3 different vendors or, Haggerty Foundations, guided reading, all that,
Sure.
we'd see it all, just one program, Haggerty all the way through 1 through 5?
That could be.
Is that
That could be
kind
one
of-
of the courses of action. Again,
Is that the goal of the state with what they're trying to
to
get
have
us
better
take?
systemic approach to teaching reading and to move away from system-
Having a couple levels here
Yeah.
from this program, a couple levels from that program. We're just trying to use
It's
one
going to
program.
try to streamline everything that we're trying to do.
Mhm.
But with the science of reading, the understanding that kids learn at a very basic level, the letter sounds, the name of the letter with repetition and in a sequential manner versus let's just flood everybody with, hey, we're going to read this book 14 times. You're going to be guessing the words that are within here. We're going to show you the first letter, guess it based on the context clues of just the picture. There's nothing wrong with that per se, but it's not the effective way of teaching a human brain how to read. That's the
So-
biggest piece. And right now we're all in very different areas across the state of Connecticut where it's, you could teach it this way, you could teach it that way, you could teach it this way. And then we're scratching our heads since 2000, why aren't kids learning how to read? And without any support or assistance. So they're providing some guides for us. And our job is to make sure that we have time to review the materials again, provide accurate time for us to allocate funding for that, and to put in place what we feel is best for our students here in New Hartford. Because we could tell you right now that the current units that we have and the pieces that we have in place, 2 out of those 5, super, super strong. Feel very confident about that. The other 3, not sure. Not sure what that impact is because it's not towards the structured literacy approach. It's more of the balanced or even the whole language approach. And we need to get further away from that so that we are teaching kids the correct research-based way of learning how to read.
Where does the board's role fall on all this? Because
Sure.
to me, it seems like this is way above anything we should be touching at all.
Yeah, so it is the board's authority to put forth the recommendation for an extension. We will move towards that vote. And then afterward, we're going to come back and reconvene and share some of our findings so that we can make informed decisions for that and what our recommendations are to meet the needs of our kiddos.
Does that decision fall on you?
It does, to make a recommendation to
Great.
the board.
As long as it doesn't fall over here.
Yeah, I will help everyone understand first what we're doing. That's critical before taking the next steps of action.
Okay.
It's really important. And any subcommittee work that we could involve Board of Ed members on to, again, continue to facilitate that discussion and understanding, we absolutely want Board of Ed members, stakeholders of parents as well, and teachers' voice are all very critical to that process.
I think as I mentioned at the last board meeting, I respectfully disagree that you know.
Yeah.
I think it's really important for our board members to represent the people that got us here in the first place, which are the parents, and the parents should have every right to know, as we all mentioned last time, what is being taught to our children, whatever curriculum, and obviously the teachers are the experts, but we have to do it in collaboration with the parents, and the parents must know what's being taught to their children, which is why I put up, a fight about it at the last board
Sure.
meeting.
No, in full transparency, we want everyone involved in the process.
It should be a collaboration with the experts and the parents, but the parents always have the first right to know what's being taught to their children. And that's my concern about the curriculum.
Okay.
Especially when it's being mandated from a federal perspective and money is tied to it.
Mhm.
It's always very, very concerning to me.
Got it. Thank you. We will absolutely involve subcommittee work from Board of Ed perspective and parents. No doubt about it.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Kelly,
Thank you.
Heather,
Thank you
and
guys so
Amy.
much.
Thanks so much.
Do you have anything else to say, Jeff?
I do not. That's what I have for superintendent's report.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Next part is public comment and communication. Is there any public comment tonight? Please come up and state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Gina Maroney. My address is 28 Red Clover Road. I actually came here because I was signed into a YouTube thing and watching it from home, and I'm like, I have to come to this meeting. I have a 21-year-old and a 19-year-old right now. They were both out of place after leaving Anselm School. My daughter got out of the school reading at a 3rd grade level. My son got out of school reading at 4th or 5th. I cannot remember. The only reason I think, is this on? The only reason I think that my son got as far as he did is because I had already learned some mistakes from my daughter getting out of here reading at a 3rd grade level. I just want to, I know you guys need to get an extension. I fully support that because I think you need to do your research on whatever program you get. And I will be a parent on that committee if you want me to be, and I'm sure I could involve another parent who was in my case, in my situation. But don't skim on whatever program you get, because in the long run, after having 2 kids outplaced for 3 years, it gets really expensive. And I'm just gonna leave it at that. We did have a lawyer, and I'm not trying to threaten or anything like that, but it gets very expensive for the school system. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thanks, Gina. Any other public comment? The only communication I have that I got this afternoon from Chris Hayward at the town hall is there's a Freedom of Information presentation, and I can send you all a copy of this. Tom Hennick, the Freedom of Information Officer for the state of Connecticut Freedom of Information Commission, will be a guest in New Hartford on Monday, January 9th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the Senior Center at Town Hall. Mr. Hennick covers the basics of adhering to the Freedom of Information Act. He reviews the rules and regulations that cover agendas, minutes, conduct of meetings, executive session, and other important topics. All members of boards and commissions, elected and appointed, are invited and encouraged to attend this free presentation. Do you have any other communication?
Outside of no new business, well, we're going to go to consent agenda next and then
Right.
new business. No.
Okay, consent agenda. We've pulled the teacher's contract. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Tom, would you like to second?
Sure, yep.
Okay. Just let me write down your names. All those in favor? Thanks. Okay, the BOE meeting schedule. You all received a copy of it? Is everything okay? So it can be submitted to the town clerk?
Is November 7th election day next year? That's all. That's the only thing I noticed.
I don't think, no, isn't it every even year?
No, there's elections every year, but.
Oh.
But I don't know, that looks like it might be that election event. They don't do it here anyway, but just make a comment. But it should be.
What was it this year? Is it the
Yes.
second Tuesday?
It is. It is election.
Oh,
Yes, first Tuesday.
all right, so,
I mean, I don't they don't do polling here,
no,
so, but it just, if people, I'm not sure if it affects anyone here, they won't be able to get their vote in, but I imagine there's plenty of time to vote.
right.
Just mentioning, not saying we should change it, but
Are you saying we should change
No.
it?
that bringing it out, if someone said we
Okay.
should change it, I would entertain a conversation, but otherwise, no, I don't think we should change it.
You don't think we should? Okay.
Just mentioning it.
Is that all right with everyone if we leave it the way that it is? Okay. Do we need a motion to approve it? Do you know? Can I have a motion to approve the,
I'll make a motion to approve
the 2023? The only comment I would have, and I've made this before, is that the first meeting in 2024 be added to this calendar. That way you don't have to rush to get it out in December.
Okay.
Just a thought.
Okay.
Okay, so Deirdre, you made it. Can I have a second?
A second.
All those in favor? Okay, good, unanimous. Child Nutrition Program Authorization Form, do you?
I do. I have that here. So this is for the Connecticut State Department of Education, School Health, Nutrition, and Family Services to make sure that they add me as an authorized person to sign the agreement. So I've signed that. Amy Norton, our business assistant for fiscal services, also signed it, and it needs a signature below for certification with via the Secretary Board of Education. If you want to pass this around for people to review prior to your signing, that'd be fantastic.
Okay. That's fine. It's fine with me. Do you want to take it over to the other side?
I will walk it across. Stretch the legs out. You are. You're very welcome. I'll wait because I'll deliver it back.
Okay.
Sound good?
Oh, that's the,
Very good. Thank you, sir.
I just need to sign it.
That is correct.
Now, let me ask you this question.
Yes.
Does it need my legal name or would I answer?
I wonder if we ought to change it.
I believe your legal name.
Yes, but we'll change it.
Here you are.
Thank you so much.
Okay, moving on. So the teacher's contract. We had a few meetings with the teachers. Everything went well. I have a summary of the significant changes. I hope you all have read the contract with the red lines and everything else. The increase of the HSA plan deductible from $2,250/$4,500 to $2,500/$5,000 for all 3 years. Increased teachers' contributions to the health insurance from 23% to 23.5% in the second year of the contract, 2024-25, and to 24% in year 3, 2025/26. The salary increases inclusive of step adjustments and gross wage increases are as follows. 2023/24 is 3.73%. 2024/25 is 4.15%. 2025/26 is 4.02%. This represents a total increase of 11.9% over the 3-year contract. This increase is slightly below the state average teacher wage increases we reviewed during negotiations. The subcommittee also avoided the time and costs associated with mediation during contract negotiations. We are very pleased to have settled on a fair and equitable contract with the teachers union for the coming 3 years. Comments?
I have one question. The lunch period that was mentioned in there, they get the 30-minute,
Yeah.
their own lunch period. How does that work with the classroom? Does anyone know? They're not going to go at the same time as their class. How does that work? Who watches the class during that period? Is that an issue? How does that work?
Thought they went to lunch the same time as their class did.
I thought it says it doesn't. It says it's a 30-minute uninterrupted lunch rather than one commensurate with the student lunch period. So 3 that means they're not going at the same time as their class unless I'm mistaken.
They're just not having lunch with their class.
Correct. So they would be going to lunch either during their duty-free lunch period, which another staff member is supervising students in the cafeteria, or during another 30-minute block, which might be recess, when they're also not on duty, so they could be eating in either block.
Okay.
As long as it's not interrupted, meaning we can't assign duties to them. We're not demanding that they come to a meeting. It's 30 minutes uninterrupted, following
Understood.
labor
I was
laws.
just wondering if, when I read it, it was like, well, you're not gonna eat, the class is gonna go eat
I
at
get what you're
11, but they're not eating, taking lunch till 11. So I just, if that's not the case, I was just wondering.
No problem.
Yep, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? All right, I have a motion to read. I make a motion that the New Hartford Board of Education approve the finalized contract as presented with the New Hartford Education Association for the 3 school years, 2023-24 through 2025/26.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Anything else? Oh, we can't ask about anything else because it's a special meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I think we have
To adjourn.
personnel. Can I just comment on personnel real quickly?
Oh,
It's on the
sorry.
consent agenda. That's okay. Just want to make sure I keep everybody up to date in terms of where we're at with personnel. We continue to pursue a replacement for special education director. I currently have 2 interim folks that are experienced and retired individuals that will be stepping into the role in the interim at a neutral cost to us because of we're not paying a current salary or health benefits to the previous special ed director, so cost neutral. That person will come in at a per diem rate to support us with state reporting functions and also to support the PPT process, CT SEDS, things of that nature. We are moving forward with an individual. We will be presenting a contract to that individual as long as all goes well and I can communicate with their HR department. We should have someone in by the beginning of the year as our official director for pupil services, just to give everyone a heads up of where we're at in that process. Okay, so if you're hearing things in the community, we don't have the person in place. Everyone's been extremely understanding. I could give a huge shout out to a lot of the school staff, my own personal central office staff that have been picking up the pieces and doing their absolute best. And I'm very impressed with the work that they've done. Additionally, I'm very, very happy that everyone voted in favor of the teacher's contract. They wear so many hats and do such an amazing job for our students each and every day. I am thoroughly impressed, and I've only been here for a six-day window. Today's my 7th day, believe it or not. But I walk into the buildings. I am very proud to be the superintendent of New Hartford Public Schools, and I'm extremely proud to serve this community. They do an outstanding job. From soup to nuts, someone's crying and upset about something, or someone's being celebrated for the work that they're doing in the classroom. It is extremely powerful. I would love to take any of you on tours of the building at any point in time because I'm just so proud to be part of this. This is an amazing school district.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Oh, I think we could adjourn.
Okay, so now who made the motion to adjourn?
Tom did.
Time at 6:52. Second,
Second.
Tony? All those in favor? Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for covering, Penny.
Anytime. I wear many hats.
Yes, you do.